In our final segment on grading in this series of lectures, we're going to look at a student perspective of submitting a grade and then look at your perspective as the instructor on what you have to do to grade the things that the student submits, and then finally go back to the student perspective to see what those grades look like. Before we look at grading, I want to kind of bring everything back to this course. I've been working on this shell of a course, building things in it, adding assignments, adding discussions, organizing the gradebook, and I want to show you with the gradebook that I took some of the things that I talked about in the last lecture and I applied them to this shell of a course as well. So if I go back to Full Grade Center, I have added things to modules 4 and 5, and I can check that by going to column organization. And you'll see that I have the rest of module 3, I have module 4, and a module 5 all laid out. I've got my discussion, my assignment, my chapter quizzes, my lab exam, my lecture exam for each one, and I've got them appropriately in the right categories that I wanted. I made a couple of extra categories. I've got my due dates and my points available for each one of those. So I've got my grade book organized now, and I'm feeling good about delivering this to the students as a very organized view for them and myself. Let's go to the student though, and let's take a look at what they see. And so we're in the student preview, and I'm going to first look at my grades. So I've turned in a few things for this student. You can see that they've got a couple of grades. Currently their course grade's not looking so good. They've got an exam grade here. They've got some grades missing, and they've turned in a module 4 assignment. They've turned in a lecture exam, or they've done a lecture exam, and they've done a discussion. Now, having this yellow circle here means again that it needs grading, and so they're waiting essentially for the instructor, the faculty member, to grade that before they get to see a grade. Occasionally they will also see a blue circle, and that blue circle will mean that it's currently in progress. If you have, say, an open-ended quiz that does not have a time limit, until they submit it they can save their answers, and it'll show up as a blue circle, just meaning that it's in progress. But that's the information the student would get. So let's go turn in something as the student, and I've turned in a module 4 assignment. I've not turned in a module 5 assignment, I believe. Right. If I can go up here. Sorry, I can't find it now. Oh, it must. Oh, I know why. It's not showing yet because I did not show it in there. But let's go turn in something. Let's go do the module 4 discussion here. So we're going to go to course content. We're going to go to module 4. And we're going to go down here to the discussion. So we talked about adding discussions and doing them. We didn't see how the student, what it looked like to the student. Let's do that. We're going to go to discussion. They're going to go create a thread. Now you would have instructions there if it was properly done. They would have instructions on what to do, and so this particular, you can see the instructions here of what they're supposed to do. They would come down here. They would enter the subject of their message. So what biodiversity means to me, and then they would start typing it. This is my opinion on biodiversity. Alright, so they would type out a response. Now, they would hit submit. They could also attach a file if they need supporting documentation, things like that. They hit submit. And you can see that they've added a thread. They've added a discussion. Now, when other people add, they can then go and click on their threads and add replies. Right, and that's how these discussions work. Okay, so as a student, I now have a few grades that are waiting to be graded. Right, so I've got 4 grades there waiting to be graded. And so let's go and be the teacher for a moment and grade them. I'm going to exit preview for this. Now, since I submitted things, I don't want to delete all of that. If you're coming out of the student preview, the most likely you're going to want to click on this and delete what you did. But I'm going to keep this data because I want to see it when I go back as a faculty member and as the teacher for the course. So I'm going to go out. This is where I'm going to use this is where I'm going to use the needs grading link here under the grade center. When I click on our needs grading, if you recall, that student had 4 things that needed to be graded, and there they are. And this will list all of the things that need to be graded. But I can sort. I can, for instance, decide to choose only certain categories. I can choose certain assignments. So let's say I only want to show Module 4 assignments. I'll click on that, hit go, and it'll only show me that module assignment that needs to be graded. So this is a good way to kind of get in a groove where you're only grading one type of assignment at a time for all of the people that have turned it in. I can select only particular users. So I can decide to grade, so I'm going to go back to all items. I can decide to grade a particular item. I can decide to grade all of the items from a particular user, or everything from a particular category, or even by date submitted. Most commonly, I will use the item selection to go find all of the assignments or all of the discussions or all of the lecture exams and grade them all at once. Let's go through a couple of the grades. Let's look at a discussion first. So what I would do is I would click on the user attempt here, and it's going to take me to this grading panel. Right? And so in this grading panel, I can do a few things. I can, one, reply to the student in the discussion board. Now this is something that everybody else will see as well. So I can reply to this discussion. Right, I'll just be mean to myself for a moment. That would be a reply, and I would have to hit reply on this to do this. Maybe I can provide documentation as well. So I'm going to hit submit, but I still haven't graded it yet. That's just a quick way that I can respond to a particular reply here. Then I can assign a grade, and maybe they have not replied to 2 other responses, so maybe I give them 3 points, and I can give them feedback. So please remember to respond to at least 2 other posts. Okay, we're going to see this. We're going to see this feedback when I go back as the student. So I'm going to hit submit, and this is that's their grade, and it's going to then take me back to. It's actually going to take me to the next gradable item. So this is another the other discussion. I'm going to exit for a moment, and you'll see that there's now only 3 things left to grade. Let's look at the lecture exam. Now normally if you just have a multiple choice test or with true-false, things that are automatically graded, the only time this will show up that you need to grade an exam is if it's late, or if you have questions that need to be manually graded, like an essay. So I added an essay question to this Module 4 lecture exam, and I'm going to go grade it. So as you can see, I didn't actually take this exam. I didn't go through all the multiple choice or anything like that. Instead, I'm going to go to the bottom. You would obviously, you could change the grade for a particular question. Maybe something was not straightforward, or maybe it was confusing. You can certainly do that. But I'm going to go down to the bottom of this test where I have my essay question. And here's that essay question. The essay question was, what is the meaning of life? And they put the meaning of life is blah, 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 whatever that is. Fortunately, I could have set it up to have kind of a response as what the correct answer, what I might have been looking for, but here I can respond to this question specifically. So I can say, good answer, you hit all the major points in your discussion, or something like that. You know, obviously you might want to be more specific, but I can give direct feedback, and then of course I can assign the points based on my feedback. I would probably give this person all points out of that. So I'm not quite done, because at the bottom I can give a feedback to the learner and grading notes. So I can give feedback to the learner. You know, this was a good attempt at the exam. Keep up the good work. And then I can do grading notes. You had seemed to have trouble with the multiple choice. Something along those lines. You can give feedback. We're going to see that feedback again as a student. So I'm going to hit save and exit, and I have just graded that exam. Let's finally go to an assignment, because there is something different here about the assignment. I'm going to go to, it's going to go there. It's going to take me again to a familiar grading page. I can assign a grade. If you use Safe Assign, and I didn't cover this, but there is a plagiarism tool to look for matches between students in the same course and even online to see what their score is, how much they match other sources. This is actually pretty decent. But I can give a grade, I can give a feedback. But in this case, right now all I see is some text here. If I scroll down, I see that there's a submission text and there is a document that the person has attached. If I click on that document, it will open it in this window. Now, I just attached a lab, safety training lab that I had. That's not the point. But it is worth noting right here that only certain formats open up well in Blackboard, and that's why it's important to keep this in mind. Word documents, PDFs, Excel documents, even PowerPoints work really well within Blackboard. In particular, the formats that don't work well are the Apple or the Mac formats, like the ODT formats or Pages format. They just don't open well, and sometimes that can be problematic if you're not grading or using a Mac for this purpose. So it's good to remind your students about the various formats that work well in Blackboard. So Word, PDF, Excel, of course, any of those can be turned into a PDF, and that would be the preferred style. But I can look at their entire document. Okay? I can scroll down and look at their entire document, but I can also mark up this document. This is a great thing about this tool. I can literally just draw on this document. I can circle things. Of course, I can delete it as well. I can circle things, put arrows. When I'm done, I can also comment. I can select a place, right here, and add a comment. This isn't quite correct, and then maybe add what is correct. Right? And so I can add a comment to this, and so it's going to save those comments in this document. And the person that is going to get this grade back will get these comments as well. So I'll put a comment here. Nice image of a microscope. Okay, so we're going to try to remember these little comments so that we'll be able to see it here in a minute. Okay, so we've got comments on this document. I can draw on this document, and I can give a grade. So let's just say a 15, and then I can give feedback to the learner as well. I'm not going to do that in this case. I can add some notes to this as well if I wanted to, and then I can hit submit. So you can see that it's not, grading is not just about adding a number. It is also allows you to interact with in ways that you normally would interact with a paper submission, for instance, or a paper test or a paper assignment. It's really kind of thorough and interactive, and can be very satisfying as not only the person grading the paper, but also the one that's going to get that back. Of course, it's going to take you some time to do that, just like you would towards any type of assignment. Alright, let's say I'm done for the day. I've been grading all day, and I don't want to grade this one yet. That's fine. You can save it for later. Of course, anytime you come back to the needs grading, it's going to pop up. This module discussion is going to pop up as something that you need to grade. Alright, well, we're done with the grading. Let's go back to the student preview and see what the grading looks like. I'm back here with the student. I'm now going to go check my grades. And I can now see, well, it hasn't graded the Module 4 discussion yet, but graded the Module 4 assignment, and the Lecture 4 exam, and the Module 5 discussion. So, look, there's some notes for me. I'm going to go and look at this note. It's going to give me the feedback that I added there. And then I'll add this too, and just remember to respond to 2 other posts. So that's some feedback. If I want to go look at the assignment more carefully, they would click on this Module 4 assignment, and it'll take them to the assignment, and they can open up the the text here, they can then look for the comments. So it's not as obvious as the other ones, but you would definitely want to tell your students to go. So one of the things that I do is I will add in the feedback. Whenever I grade this, I will add in the feedback, please make sure to go back and check the comments on the document. That's something I forgot to do in this one, and but in the feedback I would add that there so they know to go back and check this document. But they have a record of all of that, and they get to go check it, and they can see your grading comments, and they can see your markups of their documents. So that's how you would grade papers and exams and anything that is submitted through Blackboard. You have this interface that allows you to be interactive with the student, interactive with their materials that they have submitted, and gives them a good feedback mechanism. And then finally, of course, it stores it all in Blackboard so that you're not losing papers and you're not misplacing papers, and there's always going to be a record there of when they turned something in, what they turned in, and what your response was to it. Okay, so that's grading in Blackboard. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I look forward to talking to you in a future lesson.